Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this segment of our Civics Work from Home series. Today, we are going to talk about email best practices and Postmaster tools. Thanks so much for joining. We'll get started in a few minutes just to give folks a chance to join in. I want to direct you to our Civics resources page that we launched about a couple of weeks ago. And all you have to do to visit that is g.co/civics resources. So I know a lot of folks are wondering if they can see the decks that we show here on our platform. And the answer is yes, of course you can. You can see them at g.co/civics resources. And the deck that you're seeing today is actually live on that website as well. So go check it out while we're waiting for folks to join. And with that, we'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining today. We're so excited to have you for this session of our Civics Outreach series. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Shruti from our Trust and Safety Gmail team. She is the guru and expert on all things Gmail and deliverability. So we're so excited to have her to show you the best tips and tricks of email deliverability and Postmaster tools. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Shruti. I will make a note that you can ask questions below. However, I know that a lot of questions related to Gmail deliverability and things like that are domain specific. So any of those specific questions we'll take offline to civics-outreach@google.com if you have anything that's specific to your organization. But without further ado, Shruti, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Shruti Hari, and I work with the Trust and Safety Gmail team. Thanks for joining us here today. In today's session, we will talk about how you, as a sender, can improve your email delivery to Gmail users. We will talk about some best practices to follow that will help you improve your email delivery rate. And in the second half of the session, we will talk about how to monitor your email delivery by using Postmaster tools and understanding the graphs and dashboards on it. Finally, we'll leave you with some detailed links and information to more resources. Like Maria mentioned, we will not be taking any domain-specific questions, but these usually require a lot of deep diving. But feel free to email us at civic-outreach@google.com, and we will get back to you. Okay, so like I mentioned a few minutes ago, this session you will learn how to do two things. First is help improve your inboxing rates for Gmail. This means following best practices to reduce spam foldering for emails from your domain. And the second half, we will learn about the tools and techniques to monitor your domain's data using Postmaster tools. So let's jump right in. First is the steps that you would need to take to prevent mail to Gmail users from getting blocked or being sent to spam. Now, this is a question we often get, so let's go through a few best practices. The first and foremost is make sure you authenticate your email. Now, authentication methods are usually set up by your domain provider. If you use a domain hosting service or an email service provider, commonly called ESP, use their instructions to set up authentication for each of your sending domains, right? So authentication includes three major parts. One is publishing an SPF record for your domain. The second is turning on DKIM signing for your domain. And the third is publishing a DMARC record for your domain. Now, why should you authenticate? As mentioned here on the slide, authenticated messages help protect recipients from malicious email like phishing messages and spoofed messages. Authenticated messages are also less likely to be rejected or marked as spam by Gmail. The next part is to send consistently from the same email address for each mail category, right? For instance, newsletters should always come from newsletter@yourdomain.com. Volunteering email should always come from, volunteer@domain.com, and so on. Now, having separate categories definitely helps to improve your categorization. Now, in the same vein, avoid mixing categories, different categories of content in one message. So this will ensure that Gmail categorizes your email appropriately in terms of whether the email arrives in, say, the promotional tab or the financial tab or the updates tab. Okay, moving on. Now, it's very important to send email only to engaged users. Now, you have to make sure that users explicitly subscribe to your emails. It's always a good practice to confirm each recipient's email address before subscribing them. So this could include making sure that recipients type their email address twice, for instance, in your subscription form, just to make sure that there are no typos and it goes to the users who really want your email. Also, make sure you let users unsubscribe from your email. And you can do this by including like a prominent unsubscribe link in the email to unsubscribe, or to periodically send confirmation emails to users to ensure that they still want your email. Basically, I think as a quick summary, don't send email to users who didn't sign up to receive messages from you. What usually happens is, in these cases, is that recipients may mark any unwanted messages as spam, and this causes future messages from your domain to these users to be marked as spam. Now, spam classification obviously relies on user feedback, so it is very important that senders honor opt-in and opt-out preferences. Now, slowly increasing your sending volume. If you send many emails to users, make sure that you slowly ramp up your sending volume. Avoid sending emails in sudden bursts. It's always a good idea to send a few test emails first to ensure that everything goes well. Monitor the sending rates and any responses you get before ramping up volumes completely. This will ensure that a lot of your emails are delivered to the inbox. Now, there are many factors that can affect how quickly you can ramp up or how quickly you can increase sending volume. One is the amount of emails sent, right? The more email you send, the more slowly you should increase your sending volume. Second is the frequency of sent email. Obviously, you can increase the sending volume more quickly when you send emails daily instead of weekly. And the third is recipient feedback about messages. We spoke about this earlier as well. Make sure you send email only to users who really want your email, because that will ensure that users don't mark unwanted messages as spam, contributing to negative user feedback. Okay. Now, monitoring shared IP reputation. Now, a shared IP address is essentially an IP address that is used by more than one mail sender. Now, the activity of all the senders using one particular IP impacts the reputation of everybody using that IP. So this means that essentially if you use shared IPs for sending email, any other sender's negative reputation can negatively affect your reputation as well. And negative reputation, as we know, affects email delivery rates. So make sure the IP address is not on any internet block list, because messages from sending IPs on block lists can be marked as spam. And if you use an ESP or an email service provider for your shared IP, use Postmaster tools to monitor the reputation. Okay. So now that we spoke about best practices for sending email, we spoke about good things to do to help improve your email delivery rates. Let's talk about what tools you can use to identify any issues or problems with Gmail delivery from your domain. Okay. So we recommend that you use Postmaster tools to monitor the metrics for your domain. For those who are unaware, Postmaster tools is a free Google tool that provides metrics on reputation, spam rate, feedback loop, and other parameters that can help you identify and fix delivery or spam filter issues when sending to Gmail or G Suite accounts. Postmaster tools. If you use Postmaster tools to send, you can use Postmaster tools if you send large volumes of email to Gmail users. It's always a great idea to monitor your sending volume as you keep sending email to understand recipient feedback as well. So Postmaster tools sort of helps you check if users are marking your emails as spam by using the spam rate dashboard. If you're following Gmail's best practices, like authentication, for instance, if your emails are being sent securely, it gives you an idea of what kind of proportions of emails are encrypted, or why your emails might not be delivered. We have a delivery errors dashboard, which talks about that as well. Of course, we'll go into each of these dashboards in detail in a bit, but let me first talk about how you can set up Postmaster tools for your domain. So the first thing you have to do is, set up Postmaster tools. First, you'd have to go to postmaster.google.com to get started with Postmaster tools. You have to have a Google account to sign up for Postmaster tools. So once you go to Postmaster tools, it gives you a little welcome page where you get started and you have to add and verify your domain. Obviously, if you don't, since Postmaster tools data is based on your authenticated domains, so whether it's DK or SPF, unless you add and verify your domains, you might not be able to see any data out on there. So there is more information on how to verify your domain if needed on the resources page that I will share at the end of this deck. Okay, now you can implement a feedback loop. So if you are a large volume sender, you can use feedback loop to identify campaigns in your traffic that are getting a high volume of complaints from from Gmail users. So feedback loop is, feedback ID is essentially a parameter that is embedded in your message headers. Now, in the message headers, you would have to embed a new header called feedback ID. You'll have to pass a unique set of identifiers or parameters to the feedback ID, and this is what uniquely identifies each campaign. Any identifiers with an unusual spam rate that might cause delivery issues will be reported on the feedback loop, on the Postmaster Tools FBL dashboard. And feedback loop is particularly useful for ESPs, for instance, to detect abuse of their services based on certain campaigns. Obviously, feedback loop data is only going to pertain for @gmail.com recipients and not for recipients from other domains. One thing that we definitely recommend doing is monitoring the performance of your domain as and when you send email campaigns. Now, there are various dashboards and data slices available on Postmaster Tools, and I can give you a brief description of each of them here. So the first is the spam rate dashboard. So spam rate is calculated as a ratio of the number of emails marked as spam by users to the number of emails that are placed in the inbox. Okay, so number of emails that are marked as spam to the number of emails placed in your inbox. And this does not include any email that was directly sent to your spam folder, for instance. For spam rate calculation, obviously, we need to have DKIM authentication for us to be able to calculate the spam rate for your domain. The next is domain and IP reputation dashboards. Now, this shows the domain and IP reputation based on historical signals. It's a graph which shows what the reputation looks like, whether it is bad, low, medium, or high. Just as they are called, reputation depends on emails detected as spam by Gmail's filters or by user markings. Now, obviously, bad means that would definitely affect your email deliverability. High is obviously a good thing. It will help push your emails to the inbox. One thing I have to mention here, though, is that spam filtering is based on thousands of signals, and domain and IP reputation are just two of them, of the many. So that's that. There is also the feedback loop dashboard. Now, we spoke about this a little while earlier as well. This essentially shows more granular data for senders that have implemented feedback loop. So if you don't have a feedback loop ID in your message headers, you're not going to see any data here. If you do have the feedback loop ID in your message headers, then you will see a unique identifier with unusual spam rates, if any, that will be reported on this dashboard directly. So Postmaster Tools also has a few other dashboards like the delivery errors dashboard, authentication dashboard, and encryption dashboard, and we can go through these as well. So delivery errors dashboard. This shows rejected or temp failed traffic versus all authenticated traffic that's coming from your domain within a single graph, right? So it monitors what percentage of your total emails were either rejected or temporarily failed as compared to all the authenticated traffic that we are seeing from your domain. So under this graph, you can view a list of reasons as to why a particular email was rejected or temp failed. And this can be anything from either rate limit exceeded, or bad or unsupported attachments, the demarc policy of the sending domain, which could probably be set to like P is equal to reject, for instance. I have a link to all the useful resources coming up in a couple of slides. And there you'd have a link to the PMT, Postmaster Tools Help Center, which has more details on what kind of delivery errors you may see. There is the authentication dashboard. Now, of course, this is quite straightforward. It shows the percentage of emails that passed SPF, DKIM, and DMARC authentication. There is the encryption dashboard, which shows what percentage of your inbound and outbound traffic is encrypted. So another thing that you could do to understand a little bit more about how to use Postmaster tools, how to set it up, how to read and understand the data, or learn any caveats about the data that we show on Postmaster tools is to explore the Postmaster tools FAQ. We recently revamped it, and we've added a few more common questions that we see pop up about PMTs. So that's definitely a very useful resource. And so just to recap what we spoke about so far about Postmaster tools, you have to have a Google account to access Postmaster tools. Once you go to postmaster.google.com, you need to add and verify your authentication domains. Without verifying your domain, you will not get to see any data on it because Postmaster tools relies heavily on authentication domains. You will need to implement, or if you are a large volume sender, it's a good practice to implement a feedback loop. And we spoke about this earlier. This would be needed. You need to add this in the message headers. Sorry. You can monitor your performance of the domain based on the various graphs and dashboards on Postmaster tools. And another good thing, a nice thing to do would be to explore Postmaster tools, the FAQ section in Postmaster tools. As I've been promising over the last couple of slides, here's a bunch of resources that you can use to learn more about this. Sender guidelines is essentially a list of best practices to follow to help improve your email delivery rates. It was recently revamped, so it contains a ton of new information there in terms of what you can do better to improve your email delivery. In case you believe that you're following sender guidelines and your emails are still being sent to spam and you're not able to figure out why, even using Postmaster tools, feel free to contact us using the sender contact form. I will caveat this by saying that we get a large volume of requests, so we may not get back to you when we get a sender contact form submission. Postmaster tools, this is a guide on how to set up your Postmaster tools account and what data you see over there. It has more information on what we spoke about, whether it is stuff like deeper or better explanations of the delivery errors that you might see and the various slices of data that we have on Postmaster tools. And of course, the FAQ page, which has some common questions that we usually get about Postmaster tools. Yeah. Maria, I'm going to push it back to you now.
Wonderful. Shruti, thank you so much for hopping on and describing all of these tips and tricks to us. I know that, as we get closer to November, it's really important that we're, getting our emails out there and really connecting with our constituents or voters or our different audiences within the civic space. So this has been truly helpful and tremendous. Shruti shared a lot of links and lots of information with you. So feel free, if you have any questions, email us at civics-outreach@google.com. Of course, you'll reach the Civics Outreach team, me, and the rest of my colleagues that you've seen on this series so far. And then also, you'll be able to connect with Shruti as well. We're happy to make sure that your questions are answered and we can dive deeper if need be. I don't see any questions here in the platform, but like I said, you can visit civics-outreach@google.com. Also, if you want to see the copy of this deck, you can visit g.co/civics resources, or you can watch this presentation again live right here on this platform or on our YouTube channel as well. So thanks so much for joining us today. We're so excited to see how you'll be able to implement these tools, and we hope that you'll join us in 2 weeks on August the 12th. Same time, same day, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern for our next training about Google's tools to help you go forward in 2020. So we're excited to see you then, and thanks for joining today. Thanks so much, Shruti. We really appreciate it.